Most people thought they already knew Shania Twain's story. They knew the hit songs. They knew the sold-out concerts. They knew the smile that helped make her one of the biggest stars in country music. But for years, another story followed her everywhere. It was a story filled with rumors, painful questions, and quiet moments she rarely talked about. Then, as she reached 60, Shania chose to speak more openly than ever before. And what she confirmed was far more emotional than many people expected. For decades, headlines tried to explain the changes in her life. Why did she disappear at the height of her career? Why did her voice suddenly sound different? What really happened behind the end of her famous marriage? And how did someone who seemed to have everything spend years wondering if she would ever sing again? The answers did not come from gossip magazines or anonymous sources. They came from Shania herself through interviews, her memoir, and the documentary Not Just a Girl. Instead of chasing rumors, she chose to tell her own story. Some fans were surprised by how honest she became. Others said her words finally explained years of mystery. But nearly everyone agreed on one thing. The real story was much harder than the public had imagined. Before we go any further, we'd love to hear from you. Have you been a Shania Twain fan since the beginning, or did you discover her music later? Let us know in the comments below. Looking back now, it almost seems impossible that someone who reached such incredible success could have been carrying so much pain behind the scenes. Her albums sold tens of millions of copies around the world. Songs like Man, I Feel Like a Woman, and You're Still the One became part of music history. She broke records, crossed from country into pop, and inspired a whole generation of artists. Yet while fans were celebrating her success, another battle was quietly beginning. At first, the rumors sounded simple. Some people believed she had retired. Others claimed she had lost interest in music. A few even wondered if fame had changed her. But none of those stories matched what was actually happening. Behind closed doors, Shania was facing challenges that threatened not only her career but also the very thing that had made her famous, her voice. That alone would have been enough to change anyone's life. But it wasn't the only storm waiting for her. The next chapter begins long before the world knew her name, in a childhood shaped by poverty, heartbreak, and unimaginable loss, experiences that would quietly prepare her for every challenge still to come. Long before she became one of the biggest names in music, Shania Twain was simply a little girl named Eileen Regina Edwards, growing up in Timmins, Ontario, Canada. There were no signs of luxury, no famous connections, no easy path to success. Her family struggled to make ends meet. In later interviews and in her memoir From This Moment On, Shania described a childhood where money was often so tight that there wasn't always enough food on the table. She watched her parents work hard, yet life remained a constant challenge. Still, one thing never left her: music. She began singing when she was just a child. Local clubs, community events, and small stages became her classroom. While most children were asleep, Shania was sometimes performing late into the night to help support her family. It wasn't glamorous. It was survival. Those early performances shaped her confidence. They also taught her discipline. But life was about to become even harder. In 1987, tragedy struck when her mother, Sharon, and her stepfather, Jerry Twain, were killed in a car accident. Shania was only 22 years old. Everything changed overnight. Instead of chasing her dream, she suddenly became responsible for her younger siblings. She put her own career on hold and returned home, determined to keep her family together. Many people would have walked away from music forever. Shania didn't. To earn a living, she accepted a job performing at Ontario's Deerhurst Resort. Night after night, she entertained guests with long sets covering songs from many different genres. It wasn't the career she had imagined, but every performance sharpened her voice, strengthened her stage presence, and reminded her why she loved music. Looking back, those years became one of the greatest lessons of her life. She wasn't performing for fame. She was performing because people depended on her. When her younger siblings were finally old enough to live independently, Shania faced a life-changing choice. She could stay where she was, or she could take one last chance on the dream she had carried since childhood. She chose the dream. Not long afterward, she moved to Nashville, where the country music industry quickly noticed her unique voice and natural charisma. Her self-titled debut album introduced her to the industry, But it was only the beginning. Then came an even bigger turning point. She met legendary producer Robert John "Mutt" Lang. Their creative partnership transformed her career. Together they created The Woman in Me, followed by Come On Over, which became one of the best-selling studio albums by any female artist in history. Songs like Any Man of Mine, That Don't Impress Me Much, and You're Still the One turned Shania into a global superstar, reaching audiences far beyond country music. Suddenly, she wasn't just filling concert halls. She was filling stadiums. Awards poured in. Record sales climbed into the tens of millions. Fans around the world saw a woman who seemed fearless, confident, and unstoppable. From the outside, it looked like she had finally found her happy ending. But success can hide struggles that cameras never capture. Just as Shania reached the very peak of her career, the first cracks began to appear. At first, almost no one noticed them. Then they became impossible to ignore. At the height of her career, Shania Twain seemed unstoppable. Every new album became an event. Her tours sold out across North America and beyond. Fans packed arenas just to hear the opening notes of songs they already knew by heart. From the outside, she appeared to be living a dream that millions of people wished they had. But appearances can be misleading. Behind the bright lights and roaring crowds, Shania was carrying burdens that few people could see. The pressure of constant travel, endless recording sessions, and worldwide fame was exhausting. Yet even that was not the biggest challenge waiting for her. Then everything changed. In the early 2000s, Shania began noticing something strange. Singing became harder than it had ever been before. Notes she had performed effortlessly for years suddenly felt impossible to reach. At first, she thought it might simply be fatigue after years of touring. She hoped a little rest would solve the problem. It didn't. Her voice continued to weaken. Every performance became more difficult. For someone whose entire career depended on singing, it was a terrifying experience. Doctors later determined that she had developed Lyme disease, likely after being bitten by a tick while horseback riding. Shania has said she experienced blackouts and serious health problems during that time. According to her own interviews and later medical evaluations, the illness also contributed to damage affecting the nerves controlling her vocal cords, a condition known as dysphonia. The diagnosis answered some questions, but it created many more. Would she ever sing the same way again? Could one of the world's biggest performers lose the very gift that made her famous? Those fears stayed with her for years. As if her health battle were not enough, another devastating blow soon followed. In 2008, Shania and her husband, legendary producer Robert John "Mutt" Lang, announced they were separating after 14 years of marriage. The news shocked fans around the world. Soon afterward, reports emerged that Lang had become involved with Marie-Anne Thiebaud, a close friend of the couple. Shania later wrote in her memoir that discovering the truth left her emotionally shattered. She described the betrayal as one of the darkest periods of her life. The headlines spread everywhere. Tabloids filled supermarket shelves. Television programs debated every rumor. For the public, it was celebrity news. For Shania, it was deeply personal. She later admitted that there were days when she questioned everything. The confidence that millions of fans saw on stage had disappeared behind closed doors. She wondered whether she would ever perform again, or whether she even wanted to. But that wasn't the real surprise. Life has a strange way of creating unexpected turns. While coping with heartbreak, Shania found comfort in someone who understood the pain better than almost anyone else. Frederick Thiebaud, the former husband of Marie-Anne Thiebaud. Both had experienced the same betrayal from different sides. What began as friendship slowly grew into trust. Trust became healing. And healing eventually became love. In 2011, the two married, creating one of the most unexpected chapters in Shania's life. Many fans called it an extraordinary twist of fate. Shania herself has spoken about how that relationship helped her rebuild after years of emotional pain. Yet one major battle still remained. Her heart was beginning to heal. Her career was not. The damage to her voice continued to haunt her, and every attempt to sing reminded her that things were no longer the same. Rumors spread that she had retired for good. Others claimed she would never perform live again. For years, nobody knew what the future would hold. And when Shania finally decided to speak openly about what she had truly endured, The truth proved even more powerful than the rumors that had followed her for so long. 4 years, people filled the silence with their own stories. Some believed Shania Twain had simply walked away from fame. Others claimed she no longer wanted to perform. A few even wondered if she had secretly lost her passion for music. The truth was very different. As Shania became more open in interviews, her memoir From This Moment On, and the Netflix documentary Not Just a Girl, she confirmed that the biggest battle was never about losing popularity. It was about losing confidence. She has explained that after Lyme disease affected the nerves connected to her voice, singing no longer felt natural. Every note became something she had to fight for. The voice that millions of fans recognized around the world suddenly sounded unfamiliar, even to her. "I was grieving my voice," she has said in interviews, describing the emotional pain of feeling separated from the sound that had defined her life. For an artist, that kind of loss can feel almost impossible to explain. Imagine spending decades building a career around one special gift. Then waking up one day and realizing that gift no longer works the way it once did. That was the reality Shania faced. But instead of hiding forever, she searched for answers. Doctors eventually diagnosed her with vocal cord problems linked to nerve damage. Years later, she chose to undergo open-throat surgery, a procedure that carried real risks. Any surgery involving the vocal cords can affect a singer's future, and there were no guarantees that she would ever sound the same again. It was one of the hardest decisions of her life. The recovery was slow. Very slow. She had to relearn parts of her voice almost from the beginning. There were moments of progress, followed by moments of frustration. Even after healing, she openly admitted that her voice had changed forever. Rather than pretending otherwise, she accepted it. That honesty surprised many fans. Instead of chasing the exact sound she had in the 1990s, Shania embraced the voice she has today. She has often said that every scar tells part of her story, and her voice is no different. But that wasn't the only rumor she finally addressed. For years, people wondered how she had survived the end of her first marriage. Some believed she would never trust anyone again. Shania didn't deny how deeply the betrayal hurt. Instead, she spoke about forgiveness, not because it erased the pain, but because holding on to anger would only continue to hurt her. In interviews, she has explained that healing took time and that rebuilding her life required patience, faith, and the support of people she truly trusted. Her marriage to Frederick Thibault became an important part of that healing journey. Neither of them expected their friendship to become love. Both had experienced heartbreak. Both understood what the other was feeling. Over time, they built a relationship based not on fame or public attention, but on mutual understanding. Fans who had followed Shania's story for decades saw something remarkable. She wasn't pretending that everything had been easy. She wasn't trying to erase the past. She was showing that life can continue after even the deepest heartbreak. If you're enjoying stories like this, subscribe now, because the biggest part of Shania's journey is still ahead, and it has less to do with awards than with the legacy she's creating today. Then came another challenge. Returning to the stage. Many artists make comebacks after taking a break. Shania's return was different. Every performance carried risk. Every concert became another test of the voice she had fought so hard to rebuild. Some critics focused on what had changed. Most fans focused on something else entirely. Her courage. They weren't simply watching a superstar sing old hits. They were watching someone who had refused to give up after losing almost everything that had once defined her career. And as she entered her 60s, it became clear that Shania Twain's greatest achievement was no longer measured by record sales or awards. It was measured by resilience. That lesson would become the heart of her legacy, and it continues to inspire people far beyond the world of country music. Success is often measured by numbers. Albums sold. Awards won. Tickets purchased. By those standards, Shania Twain had already secured her place in music history years ago. She has sold more than 100 million records worldwide, won 5 Grammy Awards, and helped reshape country music by bringing it to a global audience. Few artists have crossed genres as successfully as she did. But as she entered her 60s, another kind of success became far more important. The ability to keep moving forward. After years of health struggles, vocal rehabilitation, and personal heartbreak, Shania returned to the stage with a new outlook. She knew she wasn't the same performer she had been in the 1990s. And she stopped trying to be. Instead, she embraced the artist she had become. That decision changed everything. Rather than chasing perfection, she focused on connection. Fans didn't come to her concerts expecting to hear every note exactly as it sounded decades earlier. They came because they had grown up with her music. Her songs had become part of birthdays, weddings, road trips, heartbreaks, and fresh starts. When Shania stepped onto the stage, people weren't just seeing a singer. They were reconnecting with memories from their own lives. That emotional bond became stronger than ever. In 2022, the documentary Not Just a Girl gave fans an even deeper look into her journey. Through personal reflections and behind-the-scenes footage, Shania spoke honestly about the highs and lows of her career. She didn't present herself as someone who had all the answers. She presented herself as someone who had learned to keep going. Then, in 2023, she released the album Queen of Me. The title itself carried a powerful message. It wasn't about proving anything to critics or chasing chart records. It was about confidence. After everything she had survived, she finally felt comfortable being exactly who she was. That message resonated with listeners of every age. Many longtime fans said they admired her even more now than they did during her biggest commercial success. Younger audiences, who hadn't witnessed her rise in the 1990s, discovered an artist whose life story was every bit as inspiring as her music. But perhaps the greatest lesson Shania has shared isn't found in any single interview or song. It's found in the way she lives. She has never claimed that recovery is quick. She has never pretended that heartbreak disappears overnight. She has openly admitted that fear, doubt, and sadness were part of her journey. Yet she refused to let those feelings define the rest of her life. Have you ever faced a moment that completely changed your future? Maybe it was a health challenge, the loss of someone you loved, or a setback that forced you to begin again. Share your story in the comments. You never know who might find hope in your experience. Looking back, the rumors that followed Shania for so many years seem far less important than the truth she eventually shared. Yes, she struggled with Lyme disease and the vocal damage that followed. Yes, the end of her first marriage left deep emotional scars. Yes, there were moments when she wasn't sure she would ever sing again. Those parts of her story were real. But they were never the ending. The real ending is still being written. It's the story of a woman who refused to let tragedy erase her dreams. A woman who turned betrayal into healing. A performer who accepted change instead of running from it. And an artist who proved that strength isn't about never falling. It's about finding the courage to stand up one more time. Today, Shania Twain's legacy reaches far beyond country music. Artists across pop, country, and rock continue to credit her as an influence. Fans continue to fill arenas not simply because of nostalgia, but because her story reminds them that resilience is possible. At 60, the rumors no longer define Shania Twain. Her honesty does. Her perseverance does. And perhaps most of all, her willingness to keep singing, even after believing she never would again. Because sometimes the greatest comeback isn't returning to the top. It's discovering that your greatest victory was surviving the journey itself. If you found Shania's story inspiring, there's another incredible celebrity journey that reveals how fame can hide struggles no one sees. You won't want to miss that one.